Do we believe in God within African spirituality? Good question. Tune in to find out. Peace, everybody. Peace. Um, for those new to me tuning in, I'm the priest of the Temple of Indigenous Spiritualism. Um, where basically, I help you to answer those ancient whispers. A lot of people coming into um spiritual systems, a lot of people need guidance, right? So today I want to get into a topic that often comes up. When people find out, my practice, which is I personally practice Puerto Rican voodoo, or what they call sanse. The first thing that people think is that we don't believe in God. Now, this is because of the worldview of what the meaning of God became. Okay. So when most people say that, they're even using it incorrectly in the context of their own religion. So most people who ask that question come from one of the modern religions or Abrahamic religions. So they're asking it from like a Christian point of view or a Muslim point of view, something like that. And so the short answer is we do believe in God, but not in the context that those people are asking it. Okay. And another thing y'all got to remember is that African traditional religions, African traditional spirituality, it's syncretic. All right. So the culture itself is a science. All right. And from that, often other cultures morph or can become part of it. So you may find people that are practitioners of voodoo or Santeria or what have you, and they could even still be Christian. Okay, so they can even still be Christian. So they could believe in the Bible, or even some of them could be Muslim. They could believe in the Quran, but they still practice their African traditional traditions. And so from the standpoint of the pure African spiritual aspect of it, that is a different view than the religious aspect if somebody is a Christian or a Muslim. So let's kind of get into what that looks like. All right. In African spirituality, for the most part, because there's hundreds of different forms, there's hundreds of different practices, right? There's not just one. But as a whole, if we were just gonna just kind of group it in a way to understand what it looks like, you have an almighty, which is both male and female. Okay, so if we're talking about, and this has different names, this almighty have different names. All right, so if we're talking about Ifa, you're going to say Olodumare. If we're talking about voodoo, you're going to say Bondye. If you're talking about Congo tradition, Congo religion, you'll say Zambi. Right, in Egypt they said Nun. So this almighty have different names, but it's so big. How we say it's so big, it's so great that you cannot, it cannot interfere as is with the matters of mankind, with the matters of earthly things, because it's so big that it even encompasses other planets. You understand? So Olodumare is so big that Olodumare even encompasses Jupiter and Saturn and Pluto and Uranus and whatever else, right? That's how big it is. So when we get into that, this is very different from the modern religious worldview. you know, where God is kind of like this being that's in the sky that you can call on direct, right? In African spiritualities, we don't look at it in that sense. Okay. So in African spirituality, this Almighty has manifestations of itself. So all of us are manifestations of Olodumare. All of us are manifestations of Bondye. All of us. Okay. And so are the plants around us, the animals around us, the planets. Everything is a manifestation of the Almighty. Okay. So understanding that, this is when we get into the manifestations of the Almighty that are put here to help us. And those that we call nature spirits are known as Loa. They're known as Orisha, right? They have different names. In Egypt, they call them Netters, right? So these are now the manifestations of Olodumare or Bondye that are here to interfere in the matters of mankind or on the matters of the planet in general. Okay. So those aspects are what we call on, but they are all still aspects of Olodumare. Okay. It's just to put it in the best way that I can help people to understand this. If you call the DMV is going to try to transfer you to a line that can actually help you with your specific problem. You don't just call the DMV and then the person answer and just you ask them anything. Likely they're going to transfer you to another aspect of the DMV that specifically handles license, that specifically handles registration, right? And that's how we view God. So when we call God, it's just like when you're calling the DMV. All right. When we call God, we have an extension on the aspect of God that we are looking to talk to in order to intercede on an issue or a problem. So if we're talking about Orisha tradition, when you're dialing up God, the Almighty, Olodumare, you're going to talk to the aspect of Olodumare that have to do with your issue. So if you're a person that you're in need of work, you're in need of stability, well, the aspect of Olodumare that you're dialing up is probably going to be Ogun. Okay. And then within Ogun, there are different aspects of him that get even more specific to what you're doing. Understand? Because Ogun have different aspects, have different paths. All right. So that is how we view God. We view God in a way where the Almighty Creator, that we are all manifestations of, that we all share as the common ancestor, that is too grand to intercede on mundane matters. And so it has many aspects of itself, endless aspects of itself. And some of those aspects we can call on as Loa, as Orisha, in order to intercede on our behalf and get things done. See? So if we're in voodoo, if we're talking voodoo, and you're dialing up to Bondye, which is there's certain things that we do to go through this process in order to get to the extension. See, because when you dial an extension, you got to know the number, right? And so us in the practice, we know the number. And so that's what we dial up. So let's say if a person is looking for love, we might dial up the aspect that leads to usually Freda, right? In which that number is a series of events that take place within ritual to conjure up that aspect of Bondye, to conjure up that aspect of God, if you will, so that it can do our workings and intercede on the behalf of humankind. So, yes, we believe in a higher power, we believe in a God. It's just not in the sense that everybody else believes in God that are into traditional, well, Abrahamic religion. I mean, to us, God isn't some being in the sky that's judging us. You understand? It's not like that. It's a energy source that exists that we can tap into aspects of here on the physical to make our lives easier or to aid us through our problems. A lot of Christians can have trouble with their praying when they pray in a way that's very broad. So I'll give you an example. A lot of Christians, see, because when they say God, a lot of times they're thinking Jesus. So even a lot of Christians have the concept of God misconstrued. They think Jesus is God. Jesus is the Son of God. Understand? So when Christians are praying to Jesus, they're actually praying to an aspect of God that gets X, Y, and Z done. Okay, so this is why certain prayers get answered, certain prayers don't. Because Jesus governs an aspect of God. Jesus, the energy stream that we call Jesus, right? Because see, in African spirituality, we look at everything as nature-based. We look at everything as coming through energy streams, things of that nature. So when we say Jesus, a lot of us may not believe in Jesus as a physical being, but a lot of us acknowledge the energy stream that is Jesus. Okay. And so when a Christian dials up the energy stream that is Jesus, that governs a certain set of mundane things. Okay. And so if they wanted to get other things done, then they would have to dial up other aspects of God in order to get that done. You see, this is how Catholics became very powerful, because the saints represent different aspects of God. And so with that being said, the Catholics are able through their saints to dial up specific aspects of God to get things done. And that makes a very powerful view on looking at God and things of that nature, right? So understand that. So yeah, so when we do our thing as African spiritualists, African traditionalists, yeah, we believe in God, but a lot of us may or may not believe in Jesus. That's just dependent on the person. Some of them believe in Jesus, some of them don't. Some of them believe in Muhammad, some of them don't. I'm one that personally, I don't practice modern religion, so I don't look at Jesus in that way. I acknowledge an energy stream, a consciousness that can be considered that aspect of Jesus. But to say that a living man walked the earth that was Jesus, I don't subscribe to that. All right. But that's just me. And now when you get into like Africa itself, a lot of them won't acknowledge it at all. My lineage comes through Black America and the Caribbean. And so a lot of things got mashed up here. So we might have different understandings of things that's different than our brothers and sisters still on the continent practicing as is, right? They have other energy streams that are similar to that of Jesus, right? So they have other energy streams that they can call on that have a similarity there, right? If you talk about Ifa, you can draw a lot of parallels between Obatala and Jesus, right? But ultimately, Obatala is not Jesus. Obatala is Obatala, right? These deities that come through, these energies that come through were venerated in different ways and were used in different ways, and different aspects were conjured in order to do certain things. And so that's why it's important to be respectful to the aspect that that deity comes from, or the tradition that it comes from. All right. So that's how we view God. So it's not to say that, you know, when we look at like Shango, to say Shango is God. No, no. Shango is an aspect of God that is called Olodumare, that is manifesting as Shango, right? It's not to say that Papa Legba is God. It's to say that Papa Legba is an aspect of Bondye that is manifesting as Papa Legba. But within Papa Legba, there are different aspects of Papa Legba that you may call to do a certain thing. You see? And that's where the work lies in. You understand? So, you know, I know, because a lot of people, man, when they come into African spirituality, they get confused. They like, what is this? What is that? What is this? What does that mean? Right. And ultimately, this is the breakdown of what God looks like from an African spiritual point of view, and how God is viewed within an African spiritual point of view. So so to say again, from an African spiritual point of view, God is both feminine and masculine. Okay. It's not one or the other. It's not a man in the sky. It's an androgynous being that is, and it's manifesting in all of us. We are all, if all of us just kept going back to ancestors to ancestors, there would be nothing left but Olodumare. There would be nothing left but Bondye. This is God. You understand? So there's another thing, is this is why it's important to understand that, because then you can start to see God in your brother and sister, and you can start to respect each other more. You understand? When I see somebody, I see Bondye. And even deeper, when I see somebody, I may see an aspect of Bondye. So when I see a homeless man asking for change, I see Papa Legba. When I see a homeless man at a crossroad and he asks me for change, I am seeing Papa Legba manifested as a human. And guess what I do? Drop some change in the bucket. I don't ask questions, because I see God in the individual. You understand? When I see different people, I'm now seeing God within my brother or sister. And not only that, because I understand the culture, I'm seeing the aspect of God that they are, and it manifests as a human, right? And so when you start to understand this, you can start to treat people better. Okay. Even animals. Like me, I'm a vegetarian. So a lot of us that's in African tradition, you know, may or may not eat meat, because there are things that do happen in African tradition, like animal sacrifice, stuff like that happens, right? It's a part of the culture. But me, I'm one that I'm a vegetarian. I don't eat meat. But even the practitioners that do eat meat, when they see an animal, they see God. They see an aspect of Olodumare or Bondye or Zambi. They see that aspect. And so they can have a different kind of respect for the environment and for nature. To be in African spirituality, you shouldn't be a person that even litters and throws trash on the ground. To be in African spirituality, you should be a person that respects the ground that you walk on, that respects the laws of physics, that respects humanity as a whole. Because all of the aspects of God that you're calling on represent these different things. And so in you understanding that, it helps you to create a balance within those things. If I understand the science behind Ogun, how can I disrespect the car? If I understand the science that is Ogun, how can I disrespect the speed as if I'm going in that car for a wreckage that could occur, right? Understanding the elements, understanding the aspects of God. If I understand Yemoja, how can I disrespect women? If I understand Oshun, how can I disrespect women? If I understand Shango, how can I disrespect the divine masculine? You understand how these aspects of God work in your life, and it creates a respect. And that's another video I'll do on that topic of, fearing God and respecting and this and that. We'll get into that whole thing. But just on the surface, this is how we view God. And it's not just African spirituality. Because when we get into other spiritual practices, they have the same type of setup, whether it's Hinduism or Buddhism. When you start to get into these other indigenous practices, you will see a similar setup. Even when you look at Catholicism, it's a similar setup. Let's understand that. That's why Catholicism so easily merged into Vodou. That's why. So understand what I'm telling you. Yes, we believe in God as African traditionalists. No, we don't believe in God the way most people do, but that's okay. It doesn't make us evil. It doesn't make us bad people. It just means that we have a different perspective on the creator. We have a different perspective on how to utilize the creator. Okay. And that's okay. And even within that, we understand that God is the good, the bad, and the ugly. Right. And so understanding that, this is how you can get somebody to just do chaos work, because there's an aspect of Bondye that is that. There's an aspect of Olodumare that is that. It's all God. See, to us, it's all God. Chaos is God. When you see a hurricane blow through and knock something down, that's God too. When you see an earthquake split an island in half, that is God. All of it is God. There's not just one aspect of God. It's a duality. And so that's how we view things. So when you get into the petrol aspect of Loa, if you get into deities like Ejeli Jerush, it's still God. It's still God. See, you get into a Baon Criminal, it's still God. It's just another aspect of God that may be chaotic, but it's a use for it. And if you know how to dial it up, you can use it. It's all on you as the practitioner, as the worker. It's your decision on how you utilize God, how you utilize the divine. It's your choice. You see? In African spirituality, there is a lot of freedom. And this is why a lot of people today are starting to gravitate more towards these traditional practices, because of that freedom that comes with African spirituality, of understanding the aspects of God, understanding that you, the living being that's on earth, have the power to manipulate the things around you using the forces of nature. That's very different than begging and praying. Because praying and begging can almost go simultaneously when we talk about when we're talking about Abrahamic religion. See, in African spirituality, our praying is not the same as a Christian praying. Let's be clear. We pray too, but our prayer is more of, we gave something to get something. We didn't just ask and say, we'll just be loyal to you and we'll continue to serve you. That's a very different view. No. A person in African spirituality might have fed a dog to Ogun and got it done. See, we're going to give to God. A person in African spirituality might have gave. See, I don't want to get too much into offerings because see, this get deep. A person in African spirituality might have gave apples to Shango for a thing to be done. It's all God. They might have gave rum to Shango, right? To get something done, to power up that source, to show the gratitude. Nothing in life is free. And so this also changes the way that we view prayer towards God. It's very different. A Christian feels as though they gave their life to Jesus. They sacrificed their self to Jesus. They gave Jesus their life. And so because of that, they can ask Jesus for certain things and just pray for it to happen. And maybe it happens, maybe it don't. In African spirituality, it's more like, okay, we gave you this and we're expecting this to happen. So we have a very different way of praying and looking at things. You understand? And so it gives a certain power to the practitioner because you're making deals with God. You're making deals. It's different. You understand? So, you know, with that being said, family, there's a lot to this. You know, for those looking to learn more, you know, join the mentorship. You know what I'm saying? For those who might just need insight on their life, you can book a reading with me or whatever. Because ultimately, you know, I'm here to give back information and teach people, you know, even though I got this science from my abuela, I feel as though not all of it, but enough of it is to share. And the people that want to learn deeper, that are serious, can come learn more in depth. But at least on the surface, there should be an understanding kind of on what we do, how, not exactly how we go about it, but just our worldview. Because people often, they look at us and they say, oh, y'all don't believe in God. No, listen, understand. When I came into Voodoo, I got closer to God than I have ever been. Understand this. When I walked into African spirituality, I've got closer and more intimate with God than I had ever been. And the practice is what brought me there. Why? Because I was able to develop a personal relationship with the different aspects of God. I was able to develop a personal bond with a certain aspect of God. And because of that, it brought me closer to God. It gave me a better understanding of God. And it allowed me to receive more blessings from God. So I hope y'all can understand that, family. To put it together, because I know it's so much information out here. I know it can get confusing, but from a practitioner, that is how we view God. All right. So I get with y'all. All right, Bobo.